Here we go. Is being recorded. Yeah, I wanted to. Please put that away. Okay. All right. So, Delsey, this is your kitchen written assignment. Yeah. A is the reflective statement. B is knowledge and understanding. C is appreciation of author's choices. D is organization and development. E is language. So we'll start with, where's your reflective statement? Is it at the very end?
I think it's at the top. Right.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it is. Okay. The reflective statement, it's out of 3 points. You got a 1. The most important thing to do is to emphasize that you learn things in this interactive world, that like as a class or as a presenter or both, that's where you learned it. You kind of want to say it as such. Like, we learned that the tea ceremony has been in a part of Japanese culture for over 10 centuries, that it has evolved through a very elaborate process to one where, you might just have a can or a bottle of tea, but keep setting it up as we learned this in this. You don't have to be that explicit, but we learned is kind of the phrase you want to hear. If you want to talk about food, then give us another paragraph about the food. We don't need the quotes so much. Less about the analysis here, more about just a reflection on what we learned in class. Okay? Finally, this last paragraph is really kind of I don't know how to say it well, but it seems. All right. First of all, during the time Kitchen was written, Japan was devastated by a recent war in the country. Not so much. I mean, it was about 40 years later. You know what I mean? And when you write it like that, it makes it sound like either the presenters were really ignorant or something was really wrong, because it is the evolution, if you will, that you kind of glance over here that is important, and it just makes it sound like manga is this flood, this rain of sunshine that comes down. And I think if you could take a little more time and just a few more sentences to make it clear that you understand that in the presentation they did show that, yeah, after World War II it was dark and it was depressing, and these were the themes in literature. But in the ensuing 40 years, by the time the 80s came around, kind of in conjunction with this growing economy, we have this new thing that starts to really capture people's, attention. Without trying to tell you how to write it. I'm just saying. Okay? Does that
make sense?
Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so on to the essay. I love the tea. I love the idea. I think you've got some good quotes. The central problem, I think, more than anything, is the organization and the development of the idea. Because how is the present incorporated into the novel? I don't think that gets us anywhere. It's incorporated because she put it in there. You know what I mean? It's kind of, we're left with a so what, I guess. That's really what we want to know. Why is the tea important? And in a way, you you address it. Perhaps it is to connect generations, right? I mean, you talk about that a little bit with the dream, a cultural illusion, or a way to establish relationships. These are all things that you could say, Yoshimoto uses tea, not necessarily a tea ceremony, but tea to show these things. Conversation starter, show compassion for a guest. Okay, awesome. But let the tea helps Mikage feel at home. This is close to what we're looking for in terms of explaining how the author is doing something or using the tea, right? But what we need more of are quotes and an analysis of the quotes. Okay? Like in for instance, in this scene, this is kind of careless, I think. You say, while Mikage explores the kitchen, I went back and sat on the sofa and out came some tea. Maybe after she explores the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just an English person. I read things. The words matter to me. But he makes tea after she's explored the kitchen. He makes some tea, right? So I went back and sat on the sofa. Out came hot tea. I think in this scene, what you're wanting to focus on is how the tea kind of brings these two together. And I think the best example of that is while she's sitting on the couch, she reflects on how normally, if she was in an unfamiliar place, she would be really uncomfortable. But the key word in that passage is something like usually, to highlight the fact that this time is different. Part of it's the kitchen, part of it's the sofa, part of it's the vibe, whatever. But I think that would go further as a quote to emphasize, rather than out came the hot tea.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So we're kind of and that comes from shifting from how does she incorporate it to how is it helping characterize, or how is it helping develop characters, or how is it moving the novel forward, or I'm not sure. But it's subtle, but it makes a big difference in terms of your appreciation or explanation of what the author's doing. That's going to go up a lot, because you're going to say Yoshimoto's using tea here to do these things. It will also help your development, because part of the development is using good quotes and incorporating them into your paper. So Yoshimoto's infusion of tea into the novella is what would be considered modern, and then not too far behind that you have it's been around for 10 centuries. I know what you mean because I've read the rest of your paper.
Yeah.
But when I read this cold, when I read it the first time, I'm thinking it's kind of like the war thing. It's like, what is she talking about? Tea is the oldest thing in the world in Japan, and she's saying it makes it modern. Huh? So, this is probably as close as to a thesis as you've got right here.
Yeah.
And I would like you to do something like Yoshimoto uses tea as to help create or highlight the bond. Okay? I think that would be the best way to do that. This phrase all throughout is kind of unnecessary.
Okay.
It's like me saying it's kind of. I can't come out and say it's unnecessary, Delsey. Eliminate, delete. Through their relationship or through the course of it, throughout the novel. Okay, we already got that. We got that. This is what I was talking about. This is a great quote. The sunlight shone through our cups and our cold green tea reflected prettily against the floor. I'm trying to remember who she's drinking tea with there.
No.
You don't remember either?
No,
Okay.
I just read through the whole book again.
This is an example of where we don't need a lot of summary, but we do need the focus again here is on the scene and maybe how the tea and the description of it, like you said, the imagery creates, instead of the atmosphere of tea, the tea helps create the atmosphere of
Angelic.
an angelic
Yeah,
atmosphere.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's really good. The pieces are there, just as they are is why this is
Okay.
here. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah.
You just gotta
Move it around.
and
With words.
yeah, so that what you mean is what's on the page.
Okay.
Because as it looks, that's why I mean, like in the atmosphere of tea, really.
No, that doesn't make much sense.
Ooh,
That doesn't even make
right?
sense to me.
It's just but
The ideas are there. I just have to.
and being able to
Fix
talk
it.
about it, I think I understand what you're saying. It's just that we've got to
Yeah.
flip it.
Notice, like, when I write my essays, when I start, my thoughts aren't really developed, and then towards the end of the essay, like, all my thoughts are together. I just never have time to go back and fix it.
I hear you.
So.
I know exactly of what you
Yeah.
speak, not only from reading many students' essays who do the same thing, but from personal experience. I do the same thing.
Like, my conclusion probably has a better thesis than the one I start off with, and 'cause
9 times out of 10, that's how it works.
Yeah.
That's why I always encourage people, if it's a timed right, skip a page or at least 10 lines and just start with your body paragraph, like the idea that you have. Start writing. By the time you get through your body paragraphs, you've probably got a pretty good idea of the introduction.
Mhm.
And then the last thing you write is the conclusion. Home run. Okay. Cool.
That's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think for the most part that's that would help. Okay.
As far as the journals, I finished 1 through 3, and I have to do 4 and 5. So they're due at the end of the day today.
Yes.
Okay, and you know in the ones where you have to take like one question and develop it into 250 words?
Mm-hmm.
Do you just choose any question you want?
Correct.
Okay. Alright, thank you.
Thank you.